Welcome to the Flora podcast, a place where we help you create a life you're excited about. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to talk about 3 ways to eliminate overthinking and mental loops. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm Flora, minimalism mentor, simplification coach, and 7-time author. For over 25 years, I've been helping women like you align into a life that you are wildly obsessed with by helping you clear the 9 types of clutter, keeping you from a life that you love. What are those 9 types of clutter? They are mental, spiritual, emotional, digital, financial, daily, body, process, and environmental clutter. My YouTube channel is where I share my environmental decluttering tips, and here on the podcast, I share with you how to declutter the rest. Please subscribe or follow this feed so you get notified every time an episode is released. Today, we're going to talk about how to eliminate overthinking and mental loops. Last week, we talked about identifying the types of clutter that most often get in your way. Mental clutter was one of the most common types with those of you who reached out to me. Overthinking and scattered thinking was part of this mental clutter that most people mentioned. Now, when we talk about overthinking or scattered thinking, it's often associated with really stressful situations as well as higher levels of anxiety. And if you have anxiety, you know exactly what I'm talking about. A stressful situation comes in, then you start feeling anxious, stressed out, and then the mental loops begin. Many of you asked how to get rid of the mental clutter, specifically the overthinking mental loops. Now, we've covered various ways to clear mental clutter here on the podcast, but today I'm going to share with you 3 more ways to clear the mental clutter. In short, the first way is gratitude. The second way is to shift assigned meaning. And the third way is to clear as much visual clutter as possible. Now I'm going to go into depth for all 3 of these. So the first one is gratitude. According to Nuance Health, feelings of gratitude can regulate cortisol production in your brain and reduce anxiety and stress. Similar to giving, gratitude triggers the brain to release neurotransmitters and hormones associated with happiness, including dopamine and serotonin. Who doesn't want to feel more happy, right? Finding and seeking out things that we feel grateful for causes us to actually begin thinking about things that we have in our lives that we often overlook just because life gets in the way. And doing this allows us to connect with those parts of us that really truly appreciates all that we have. But is creating a gratitude practice adding to your daily clutter or your routines? A few episodes ago, I shared with you about how morning routines can cause and create so much clutter in our lives. Gratitude is often one of those things included in those extravagant morning routines. So, to that, I say, test this for yourself. Test out this gratitude stuff. First, check in with yourself. What is your baseline thinking right now? Next, start thinking about those things that you're grateful for. List them out until you can't think of anything else. Now, once you're done with that, check in with yourself. How do you feel? Do you feel less stressed or less anxious? Chances are, if any study that is cited on this is right or is worth its weight in gold, you will or should feel less stressed or anxious. Doing a gratitude practice regularly actually primes your brain to almost automatically begin looking for things to feel grateful about and to feel grateful for, which again leads to a reduction in mental clutter. Now let's look at the second way to clear mental clutter, which is to shift assigned meaning. Everything in life is meaningless. It's neutral. We give things meaning. Your favorite mug, your favorite vacation spot, the blanket from your grandmother, all of it holds meaning for you because you gave it that meaning, or because someone else says that it holds a certain meaning, such as a religious object or a crystal or a book or a piece of furniture. All of these things hold different meanings for different people. Everything is void of meaning until we give it meaning. Mental clutter, like overthinking and mental loops, often gives too much meaning to something, or your brain can be unclear about what meaning to give something. So then the mental loops start with all the different scenarios and all the different meanings that it could possibly hold. So in this next exercise, you can use a notebook or journal if you want to. First, pick something that you overthink about, whatever it is. It can be big, it can be small, or somewhere in between. Then get clear about the facts and the feelings about the situation. I talk about this in chapter 16 of my book, The 1 Degree Shift. Link is in the show notes. And what are the facts of the situation? Boom. And then what are the feelings? What are your feelings about the facts? Separate the fact and the feeling. The next thing is ask yourself, what am I making this mean? What meaning are you assigning to this thing that you are overthinking about? Give yourself permission to unpack whatever meaning you're giving to this situation. Then ask yourself, is this meaning factual? Yes or no? Is this straight up facts? And what if you could just change the meaning that you're assigning to this particular situation? What would you want to have this thing or situation mean? You truly can decide to shift the meaning of something by really picking apart and unpacking, what am I making this mean? That this is causing all of these mental loops to come up. Now I get it. Like, I've had anxiety for 20 years. So there are some times where you can go down a rabbit hole of mental loops. But this is one of the exercises that just gets me out of my head and into that space of, wait a minute. Okay, I'm freaking the fuck out here. Let me stop for just a second. What are the actual facts? And when you do that, your brain has to stop overthinking and really get curious and say, what are the facts? Okay, what are my feelings that I'm feeling about the facts that I know? Okay, so what story am I making up? Because often when you bring in these feelings and you see the facts, the feelings and the facts don't add up. So wait a minute, there's probably a little story that I'm interjecting here that is causing this mental loopage, and it's causing me to assign a meaning that I'm assuming this thing means, when in reality, I can assign it any meaning I want to. You can decide to shift the meaning of something. You can just decide. Getting clear on the assigned meaning to something can help you understand the nature of the mental clutter that is coming up for you. Once you understand the nature of that mental clutter, it's going to be so much easier for you to clear. Lastly, let's look at the third way to clear mental clutter, and that is to clear as much visual clutter as possible. Yes, I'm going to say that again. Clear out as much visual clutter as possible. The more things your brain sees, the more threats it's scanning for. The more it sees, the more cortisol or stress hormones get released into your body. I've talked about this more times than I can count. The more stress you feel, so the more stuff you have out in your physical space, the more your brain says, oh shit, there's a lot of stuff to scan. Let me keep scanning. And because there's a lot of stuff to scan, it pumps out cortisol or stress hormone into your body. And the more stress that you feel, the more your brain tries to figure out why you're feeling stressed. Hence, the overthinking mental loops and the mental clutter begins. One way to decide which area is causing you to overthink the most, simply go around your home and look for the most cluttered room. If you can, declutter or hide all the visual clutter and clear as many surfaces as possible. It's okay to have an empty shelf. It's okay to have a empty something or other, whether it's a table, a bureau, a chest of drawers, a countertop. It's okay to not have anything on that counter. If having a completely empty something, whatever it is, stresses you out even more than having all the stuff on it, take out 1 or 2 things to put on that space. So clear off your entire table and put like a vase of flowers on it, or a crystal or a rock or a couple of books or whatever to make it look all cute. So that's if a completely empty space stresses you out more than having all the visual clutter. But when you do this, you're going to notice how quickly this shifts your emotions to a more calmer state, simply because your brain says, oh, nothing there to worry about. I can relax. Now, I have a whole YouTube channel that shares tips on how to clear physical and environmental clutter from your life. I also have a bi-monthly live 5-hour virtual decluttering day where we actively declutter for 5 full hours. All the links for these are in the show notes. Recognizing that mental clutter is getting in the way of your goals is truly the first step to clearing. Practicing gratitude, unpacking and shifting the assigned meaning that you give to things, and clearing as much visual clutter as possible are only 3 ways to begin clearing the mental clutter in your life. As always, let's continue this conversation and support each other in building the lives you're not only wildly obsessed with, but are genuinely filled with so much joy and gratitude. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I invite you to share all of your experiences with clearing mental clutter and even identifying mental clutter in the comments below. If you're listening to this on any podcast streaming service, email me, flora@florasage.com, to share your comments. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share with friends, and leave a review. Your support helps this podcast reach more people looking to declutter their lives and align into a life they are wildly obsessed with. I hope this serves you today, and remember, all it takes is a clear vision of what you want and the willingness to take one small shift in that direction daily to align into a life that you love. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. All links mentioned are in today's show notes.